There were a handful of progressives who voted against it. They explained their reasons. Going into Build Back Better, there is no margin among Democrats, really just a couple of votes that you could possibly lose in the House, none in the Senate. What is the strategy when you know you're not, more than likely not going to have any Republican support to cover for that, when it is possible there will be changes made by the Senate that may not be in the interests shared by the Progressive Caucus, tightening up some of the provisions within that? So how will the president approach that, trying to keep progressives on board when 6 very prominent progressives voted against the first piece of the Biden agenda?
You know, Kelly, I'll say this. You know, we're going to approach it the same way we approached the American Rescue Plan, right? Which people thought we weren't going to get that done. We're going to approach it the same way we approached the bipartisan infrastructure framework, which folks said we wouldn't make that happen. And so right now we're 2 for 2. All right. And so we believe that this is going to get done. The president is committed to this. This is part of his agenda, right? The economic policy agenda that you hear us, we say this all the time, that 81 million people voted for last year, just a year ago. And so these are popular components of his economic policies when you look at both the BIF and the bipartisan Build Back Better Act. And so we're going to continue to work with Congress. We're going to continue to work with the Speaker, continue to work with Leader Schumer, and have those conversations across the aisle to get it done, because this is something that the American public, the American people need. This is once in a generation, investment. We're talking about child care. We're talking about elder care. We're talking about making sure that medical expenses are not your whole entire check. When you think about pharmaceutical drugs, I mean, we're talking about I said child care already, but all of these things, climate change, right? When you put those 2 bills together, it's historical in a way that's going to get us to where we need to go to fighting climate change in a real way. So these are so important to the president. We're going to continue to work on it. But we got American Rescue Plan done. We got bipartisan infrastructure done when people didn't think we would.
Do you expect the president will add sort of to his daily briefing the update on what's happening with infrastructure projects and things, so that there will be an inflow of information about what these projects are in a practical sense? Will there be a sort of an in-house, inside the White House, sort of central clearinghouse for this, since it does deal with many departments of the government?
Well, as you know, this is nothing new to the president. When he was vice president, he led the Recovery Act, pardon me, and so he knows how this is done. He knows how implementation works, and so knowing this president, he's going to want to know every component of how it's going, and so we're going to stay on top of it. It's going to be key in order for the American people to feel this. This has to be implemented, so we're going to make sure that happens.
Go ahead, Sabrina. Thank you. The U.S. is now accepting fully vaccinated travelers from countries that were previously restricted during the pandemic. Given how rapidly the Delta variant spread here within the United States over the summer, why are there still no vaccine or testing requirements for domestic travel?
So, we say this all the time, everything's on the table. We just don't have any announcement to preview right now on this. So I don't have anything more to share on the domestic travel.
Separate topic, but before his foreign trip, the president signaled he was considering some changes, possible changes to the filibuster, and would have more to say soon. Do you have any update on where he stands, and would he support a carve-out, for example, for another debt ceiling increase?
I don't have anything more to share on that, but I would say we've talked about this with the debt ceiling. We believe that it should be done in regular order, just like it was done just a couple of weeks ago, and that's the way that we think we should move forward. But clearly, we're going to work closely with members on the Hill, with Leader Schumer, on the next steps on this.
Thank you, Karine. I have, on foreign policy, I have two related questions on U.S.-Russia relations, if I may. First, could you give us a readout of talks that CIA Director Burns held in Moscow last week? He was there at the request of the president. And secondly, there was a discussion of a new contact or a meeting or whatever between President Biden and President Putin. There was a pull aside between President Biden and Foreign Minister Lavrov in Rome. Could the two presidents meet virtually or in person before the year is out?
So on your second question, I don't have anything to preview on any meeting. On the first one, as you stated, CIA Director Williams Burns, at the president's request, led a delegation of senior U.S. officials to Moscow on November 2nd and 3rd. As you just stated, they met with members of Russian government to discuss a range of issues in the bilateral relationship. I don't have anything further. Okay.
Thanks so much. Regarding the OSHA vaccine case, you mentioned the high number of Americans who died over the course of the year, but cases are falling. Many workplaces have already implemented safety measures that appear to be working. So how does the administration explain what is the grave danger at this time now?
Well, we still have 1,300 people a day, approximately 1,300 people a day dying of COVID. That should not be the number that we're looking at. And we believe that in order to get this pandemic behind us, we need to get more people vaccinated. And this is a way to do that. And we see vaccination requirements work. And also, it's important to keep people safe in their workplace. That should be mission critical in making sure that that happens. And so we're gonna, we feel confident about the legal component of this. The Department of Labor has the authority to move forward in making sure that they keep the workplace safe. And so, we have to make sure that we get this pandemic behind us.
On infrastructure, the president is going to be out promoting. You've talked about that he's going to be, getting his voice out and talking to the American people directly. I just wanted to ask, though, how does he balance promoting infrastructure while also kind of digging in to make sure that the bigger social service climate package is conducted? I mean, how does he tour as well as, work the phones and meet with members here in Washington to get the bigger package done?
Well, the president can manage multiple things at once. That's not unusual for any president or for this president. And when he did travel, when he was traveling, talking about his economic policy, he talked about both. If you listen to his speeches, he laid out the advantages and the importance of the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and he laid out the importance of the Build Back Better Act, and laid out why those two key pieces of policies are going to get America back on track, continue that investment that we saw with the American Rescue Plan. So this is something that he has been doing and he will just continue to do.
Just a follow-up on the messaging questions. Are there specific lessons that the White House learned from selling the American Rescue Plan earlier this year that they'll apply or do better or do differently this time around with the infrastructure legislation?
That's such a great question. I don't have any specifics to pull out or to call out on things that we can improve on. We believe the American Rescue Plan was incredibly successful. I mean, if you just, again, look at the jobs numbers for last month, if you look at how much the economy is coming back, 620,000 jobs a month since the president took office, 5.6 million jobs, 531,000 jobs just last month. And a lot of that was because of the American Rescue Plan and the decisiveness, the decision that the president took to make that happen. And also getting people vaccinated. His vaccination strategy played a big role. So that's to your question over here, the importance of turning our economy back on is also to get people vaccinated. It's all correlated, it's all connected, and so that's the important thing to remember.
Vaccinations? Sure. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly, a Democrat, put out a statement Friday criticizing the OSHA rule, saying she doesn't believe this directive is the correct or most effective solution for Kansas. You've repeatedly pushed back on Republican officials in this context, but does a statement like that from a Democratic governor undermine the White House's message and complicate your ability to persuade the public that this is the best policy?
Well, look, I mean, the way that we see it, and this is the thing that we repeat all the time, we know the vaccine requirements work. And we're going to continue to push that. I know we're going to make sure that we get as many people vaccinated. It is so important to get this pandemic behind us and to get the economy going. And so that's going to continue to be our message, is to tell anyone that we're working with, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, that this is how we have to move forward to make sure that we get out of the situation that we're in, to get out of this pandemic again.
Can I also follow up on vaccination? Yeah. You just mentioned a lot of the stats that you guys were citing on Friday with the latest jobs report, but also just jobs in general since the president took office, and the progress from the rescue plan. How do you square that with how voters sort of reacted and felt in the states on Tuesday? Obviously, New Jersey, Virginia, elsewhere. Clearly, there's a lag, at least, in terms of how people are feeling about the economy and about the results so far.
So, I mean, it's basically what the president, which is why I think it was a huge step forward that the bipartisan infrastructure plan got passed last Friday, and that's in to credit the members in the House and both chambers actually, and also the president working in partnership with them. And so we have to deliver. That's what the president said. We have to deliver and make sure that the American people see what we're doing here in Washington D.C. So we're going to continue to do that. Build Back Better is going to get done. We're very confident about that. You heard the president say that himself on Saturday, and he's going to work very hard to deliver that.
And can you provide any more clarity on the upcoming virtual summit with President Xi? Do you have maybe a closer approximation of a date for that?
Yeah, let me see if I have some. So, as we've said, we have an agreement in principle with the PRC that President Xi and President Biden will have a virtual bilateral meeting before the end of the year. This is part of our ongoing efforts to responsibly manage the competition between our countries, not about seeking specific deliverables, so I want to make clear on that, and working level discussions are underway to confirm details, but I don't have any updates for you at this time or announcement on a time on this.
Say whether that's going to be before Thanksgiving or after.
I don't. All we have is before the end of the year, as I just stated.
Another foreign policy question?
Question on COVID. You mentioned that there are still, an average of like almost 1,300 people a day still dying. At the current rate that we're going, do you have an idea of when the pandemic could become an endemic? Could cease to be a pandemic, and what does the end game look like at this point?
Yeah, I do not know. I would refer you to public health experts, the CDC. That's not something that we're zeroing in on. Our focus is to make sure we do everything we can to save lives and get people vaccinated.
Because people are sort of wondering,
Yeah.
what does that look like, and how much longer is it going to go on? And obviously, you can't see the future. But is there a picture of what people can expect as we try to wind this down?
Honestly, Chris, our focus is to make sure we get as many people vaccinated, right? We want to, if you think about it, this time last year, there were no vaccines, right? We've come a long way in just these first 10 months, and making sure, we have 80% of Americans have at least one shot. 70% of Americans are fully vaccinated. Now we've opened it up for the ages 5 to 11, thanks to the CDC and FDA and their ruling and their decision. And so our job that we see here in the administration is to make sure that these vaccines are readily available, that they're free, right, and that we make it as easy as possible for people to get vaccinated, and that we message that out. And so that's our focus, to be in a different place than we were, 6 months ago, a different place than we were a year ago, and really just kind of move forward on getting people vaccinated. Go ahead, Karen.
Follow up on that. You talked about the First Lady going out there today to Virginia, and that she's going to be doing events like this in the coming weeks. What is the goal to have the First Lady out there? And what message is the administration hoping she can convey? How can she be an effective messenger? And then I asked this question a couple weeks ago, maybe months ago, but now that we're here and that the age 5 through 11 can get vaccinated, how has the administration shifted its approach and strategy toward convincing those parents who are hesitant? Because the polls are showing very significant portion of that age group, their parents are worried and waiting a little bit. You've done this for adults, you've done this for teens, but now these young kids, how does that strategy change?
So on your first question about Dr. Biden, the First Lady, she is a powerful voice, just as First Lady and also as herself, as Dr. Biden, and a mom, a grandmother. She understands what parents are feeling, right? She understands what it means to go through this process. So I think that we think that she is incredibly credible, right, and has a powerful messenger going to schools and really comforting parents if they have questions, or comforting kids who are getting vaccinated. And so we're happy to see her out there. She'll be out there more, and we're going to continue to try and make sure that parents feel comfortable and more kids get vaccinated and more adults get vaccinated in the process.
Follow-up, just
Yep.
in terms of the strategy.
Yeah, Dr. Vivek Murphy talked about this, talked about what is it that they're doing to address the hesitancy of parents. As you can imagine, we've said this the last couple of months, is having trusted voices are key, right? Your pediatrician, making sure you're talking to your pediatrician about this, making sure you're talking to public experts. And so we'll continue to have those conversations. And I would also refer you to Dr. Murphy and what he has said in the past on this as well.
Can I follow up on the question, the answer to the question you gave about the vaccine mandate for federal employees? You said agencies will release the vaccination rates once the process is completed. Will that include how many employees have asked for religious exemptions and how many will be granted them?
I don't have specifics on how the breakdown is going to be, but I know that that's where it's going to come from, and they'll release the numbers. I don't know like the specifics.
Now, we've asked and others have asked, and they're
Okay, I can go back and get that particular question for you answered, but I know that that's where it's going to come from.
A question from the fifth row, please. From the fifth row.
Go ahead, Evan.
Thank you. Quick question. You talked about how this infrastructure plan is going to impact jobs numbers, and we've heard the jobs report in the past, and for the Black community it's a little bit different. So can you talk about, which the rate is almost double. So can you talk about, with this plan, how, is there any target number, or how specifically is it going to impact the Black community? And also with going back to the American Rescue Plan, with 1.9 trillion almost hitting the streets, municipalities getting a hold of this pot, how are you making sure to track that this money has been distributed equitably?
So that is something that the president has been very clear about all of his policies, even if you look at his COVID strategy, is to have equity at the center of this. If you look at, talking about the American Rescue Plan, if you look at the child tax credit, about 34, and when we talk about it cutting child poverty for the Black American community, it's about 36% it cut child poverty. So those things are important and critical, but we're going to continue to make sure that all of this is done equitably. I mean, like I said, if you look at the COVID strategy that we had, it was done in an equitable way, and we're going to continue to do that with we did that with the American Rescue Plan, and we'll continue to do that with both of his economic policies. Bipartisan infrastructure clearly has been passed, and we'll make sure once the Build Back Better Act is passed, so that we see that equity at the center of everything that we do.
And concerning the jobs numbers.
Yeah, so you're talking about the Black unemployment rate? Yeah, so we know there's a lot of volatility when it comes to individual groups because of small sample sizes. So it's critical to look at broader trends instead of individual data points. So when you do that, you'll see that we've made real progress across the board, including the African Americans going from 9.2% unemployment when the president took office to 7.9%. Like, we know that's still really too high, and there's still a lot of work to do, but there has been a difference that we wanted to point out. So we need to continue to build on the strong labor market. We have to ensure that the growth we're seeing is broadly shared, which is so important, and we